about Father Peter Thomas. Whatever you say, you are said too little. That would be, I think, the estimation of all people. And there is also an additional problem. That problem is to find anything bad in Father Peter Thomas also is difficult. So you can be realistic by praising him all while. Because I think, as I mentioned in the beginning of the Mass, I believe he was a man, Nathaniel. He was a man without guile. I think that is, I think everybody was speaking about Father Peter Thomas is that. And the funeral service, all what we heard, generally sometimes I hear comments, if this was spoken when he was alive, he may not have died. But I think in the case of Father Peter Thomas, nothing was said too much, because everything was true and everything was, I think, appreciated by everyone who heard it, because he was goodness itself. He was personification of goodness. And I think every one of us. And that is why his nickname was Good Father Thomas. And there are many other Thomases, maybe they are not bad, but Father Peter Thomas was Good Father Thomas. So I think that was itself what the way he was known in the province. So that's being said. And today's first reading already said who is that man. That is, humility is the criteria with which God judges us. Not because of our accomplishments, not because of what we have done, but what we are. That is far more important. What we do is not as important as who we are. Being is more important than doing. And I think this is very well exemplified in Father Peter Thomas' life. He was a man doing, and not doing, but from the goodness of his being that he was doing. There was no hypocrisy in his mind. He was always reaching out to people. He was always wanting to help people. So I think there is nothing, as I said, he was seeking for himself. He was always seeking for others. That was his basic characteristic. I came to know Father Peter Thomas first when he was appointed as my rector, second rector, with my ordination. First rector was P.T. Thomas, next rector was Father Peter Thomas. There is definitely, we all agree, there was a lot of difference between the two. And Father Peter Thomas was my rector until I left from here to Saudi Arabia. And Father Peter Thomas was, as I said, so anxious to help everybody in the community, not only in the community, in the sedition, but that time you remember, Provincial House was not only just Provincial House for sedition. It was a Provincial House for everybody in the Northeast. There was no CRI, there was no other communities in Thelekkate. Everybody sought asylum in the hospital. So any day we could have had 2-3 ships of land. And we had a capable cook that 10 basket, so he would be able to provide food for everybody. So it was constant flow of people. And Father PJ was here welcoming everybody and being kind to all. And then he is one of those who was a parish priest and rector. I think Guwahati is not an easy place to be parish priest. I don't know whether many parish priests have passed through this way without being criticized severely sometimes. But Father P.J. Thomas, I think, I've heard only good things about him by people around and people. So I think that's what Father P.J. Thomas was, a man out for others. The man for the other, as we would define Jesus himself. I think that's what Father P.J. Thomas was. So this was my first experience in a year as he was my rector and I was principal of the school. He was so concerned about me, he was so concerned about Father V.M. Thomas. V.M. Thomas was assistant head principal. And he had already that time the charism to reach out to people and become friendly with who is who in Guwahati. So naturally sometimes he would be missing in the community and Father P.J. would be anxious to wait for him. Just Father Malika told you when you were on the funeral day, how Father would wait for him till he returned from the missionary tour. And he knew where he would be found. He would be in the church. He would be sleeping, but he would be there in the church, waiting for Father Malika to come. Similarly here, I had woken him up from the office because feeling and sleepy. I said, Father, you go to bed. Then he will find him in church. He was sleeping here. Then I asked him, please go to bed. Then no, Father, Via must not come back. I said, Father, he is mature. He can come back when he wants. He go to bed. But he would not go until Father Via would come. Or if I was absent, he would be waiting for me. And as I said, he was always there reaching out to people. Of course, Father has been many other places for which I am not very aware, except when he was in Thelekkate. That time I was provincial, so I used to visit him often. That was a place for the really truly ardent missionary. They had nothing practically, they had only a shed, and even to reach there, we had to jump from rock to rock in the road. The road was not good at all. And I remember once when I went as vice provincial, Father sent me off very gloriously with his assistant, Father Malekal. And I didn't know Malekal was only learning to drive. Soon I found myself in the train. So then only I realized that. But I never mentioned to Father Peter because he would have felt so embarrassed. I did not mention to Father John also. John was the provincial and John would have told Malekal not to drive anymore. So anyway, we had a nice trip like that. And I've been there many times to Thelekkate visiting him. Later on, he was in Uswai, that time I had not contacted him. He was also many times in Sabi United. And last that I met him was in university. Again, Father was there, a picture of goodness. Didn't have much to do with the house really, but he was always found either in the church or in his room. These are the only two places we could meet. When we didn't find him in the room, we went to the church, he was there. He was not in the church, he was in the room. Most of the time, waiting for people to come for confession. Then he was going around the communities there around sisters' confessions and all. So he was again, and he was so anxious. Sometimes, when conference are on the verge of leaving, Father would feel very, very concerned. Once I remember he came and told me, Father, I knew the situation, but I didn't say anything because Father would be, he was so anxious, and I said, Father, this way, we can't do anything. Now, see, he was so concerned about it, so concerned about it. Now, if one description of him, whenever I see Father PJ, whenever I hear about Father PJ, the one that comes to my mind is Enneagram. I think some of you may know what the Enneagram, the 9 personality types. If you had to characterize Father PJ Thomas from Enneagram perspective, Father was a perfect 2. A redeemed 2, not just a 2. Because every character, every year one of those types have got both plus points and minus points. But redemption is not easy, and that is why that system is very good for spiritual growth in our life when we study that Enneagram. And whenever I speak about, I think about number 2 in that category, I always remember Father Peter Thomas. A man, number 2 is defined as the helper. Is defined as the helper, or the host, or anything to do with the kindness and generosity. So I think it's very, very important for us to realize our life is measured not so much by what we do as by what we are. If we are genuinely good people, then we will leave a trail of influence after us. I think Father Peter Thomas will be remembered for a long time. People will speak about him, people will long to, kind of remember him and things like that. There are some few people like that who are really remembered. Just not a personal note, but my sister died in 2005. But wherever I go, wherever she has been working, people will all speak so much about her. Whether it be in Kohima, whether it be in Mara, any of those places, Arunachal Pradesh, wherever she has been, she's been, she has touched life. That is actually what is the merit of anybody who touches life. We touch and we grow. With all our other accomplishments, we don't attract people. And I think what St. Francis of Assisi has said is very true of Father Peter Thomas. We must preach always, sometimes with words. Father Peter may not be a very eloquent speaker, he may not be a very eloquent communicator, but he communicated so much. Why? Because of his life. Because the person he was. So I think this is what I think by looking at Father Peter Thomas, I think we need to know that. One time he was also in Snehalia. I remember a short time he was there. But one problem with the father was he was so anxious about making those children into saints that he found it very difficult to, be there for long. So Father Lucas asked for better that he relieved of that because he was getting a little over anxious about the boy being, and it was the initial stages of Snehalia. So I'm just saying how this good person with a large heart was able to welcome everybody into his life, and he was giving out everything to others, hardly thinking ever for himself. He had not that thought of self-aggrandizement or anything of that sort. That was not part of Peter Thomas. So Peter Thomas was ready to do a helper parlance. Really a helper who went out to help anyone. I'll just conclude by one incident that happened. That day was the second time he was looking after sick here. One parishioner died. Nobody has contacted father or nobody. He just came to know that he has died. He was already anxious. The family is very poor. What will they do? How will they bring the body from there? All cannot come. And he came to me in the school, asking for vehicle to transport the body. I'm just saying, nobody asked him.